Welcome to the Queen Divas, Queens of Fitness podcast. Join your hosts, three-time WBFF World Champions and WBFF royalty, Alicia Gowans and Stephanie Ayala McHugh, as we explore all things female health, training, competing, mindset, and living the fitness life every day.
Okay, so super excited for what will be episode 18, oh my gosh, of the Queen Divas podcast with my beautiful co-host, Stephanie Ayala McHugh, who is now the 4-time World Diva Fitness Champion and finally the official fucking GOAT.
Oh, cool. Honestly,
so awesome.
Oh, it still feels so fucking weird, honestly. It is. Just because you always envision it. You know, Ali, like from when you started your journey, I think I never thought myself of like a 4-time champion, anything like ever. I just wanted one crown. Like, honest to God, just not being real with everybody here. I think every girl that starts their journey within WBFF, if you know what WBFF, it's World Beauty, Fitness, and Fashion. And it's a pageantry fitness competition where you do get a crown, and a crown is the epitome of winning, you know, the world's or international show or a regional show even, but it is very, very the prestigious level that you just kind of like see yourself at. And so for me, I was like one and done, and I wanted to be done, honestly. And now my journey just continued, and it's still like mind blowing to me that I'm still going and that I'm still competing and that we're like, I don't know. It's just weird. I don't know, guys, but I'm really blessed and I'm so overjoyed. And all the support and all of the messages and everybody that was throughout my journey, just being such a very big outlet. You know, you, Ali, your team. Oh my gosh, your team's so beautiful to me. They're always so nice. And
they can't wait to see you. They're always like, I'm going to get a picture with Steph.
There's such feeling. I love it. It's such an awesome feeling. And just all the followers and every one of you that's messaged me and you know, just supporting me along the way. So thank you. I really do appreciate it. So
I think look, I think most of our listeners are going to want to hear about, you know, what was going through your mind and what was different between previous preps to this one, and especially I guess with how you were combating, you know, pandemic and all of the challenges that the rest of the planet's been facing. When you know that it is something that you are defending, when you know that it is something that, you know, we didn't know which way it was going to go. We spent an entire year of prepping last year, the both of us, with no show even coming into sight, which meant that we didn't progress like we would normally progress.
Right.
You know, like, talk to everyone through that, because I think, you know, this is something that a lot of people would find super interesting to hear about your perception and experience in this space.
You know, I think number one, a lot of people forget that I was actually prepping for this, like you said, since last year. It wasn't just this year that I was prepping for the show. So I definitely wanted to finish what I started, number one. So last year when I started prep, I never got to step on stage. And I got to go to the shows. I got to go to Miami, you know, Orlando, Bahamas, and watch everybody step on stage. And that still was kind of building up that ammunition for myself to get back on stage for my own redemption. Just for everyone's competitive journey, I think that the biggest thing that you should take home with you is that it is about you versus you. As corny as that sounds, as much as you see it and hear it around, it really is you competing against your previous self. If you can improve and showcase yourself in growth, show obviously those improvements from show to show, you're going to feel so much better internally. And of course, judges are going to see that. So for me, it was about coming and showing myself better on stage. I didn't have a good prep going into Bahamas. I think that it was actually one of my worst preps. It was really my worst peak week. It was a mess up, honestly, for me, and a lot of things that I wanted to correct. I wanted to do better. So going into last year, the show's being canceled, I was so sour. I was like, I need to get back on stage. I just need to get back on stage to prove to myself that I can make these improvements and that I can come back and just redeem myself for these things that I was so upset about that I did going into Bahamas. So here we go, going into 2021, again, re-prepping, assessing, thinking that we're gonna, you know, go through with the show. And then things start kind of going backwards. Oh my God, these last few weeks prior to World Alley, I was starting to get all anxious again, thinking the same things that happened last year. Like things were starting to shut down again. Cases were starting to rise. Yes, the restrictions started going up again. Vegas started putting the mask mandate. I thought maybe the show potentially may not go on. I think that's actually the last episode that we were chatting about. Like maybe things are happening. I was still very positive, but things started creeping up on me as the days went on. That I was like, oh my God, maybe this is going to happen again. But what has grounded me the whole way has honestly been having the routine of my actual prep year round. I think a lot of competitors take seasons, and a seasonal competitor is only going to show seasonal changes. And I think that if you really keep yourself going year round, so it wasn't a year round thing for me, it was actually like a couple year prep that went to the show. Even though we didn't make a massive building phase, we actually learned that throughout these last couple of years, I've been able to build off of a maintenance phase a lot more than what I actually did during these episodes of building phases that I would take for 6 months, or let's say 6 to 8 months, and then start tapering down for prep. In reality, I actually stayed in maintenance phase for 6 to 8 months for the last couple of years instead of those those building phases. So it was pretty incredible to see how much I was able to still grow in those maintenance phases versus a building phase. So that was one of my biggest takeaways for myself going into this prep.
And what I think I noticed for you on a development and improvement zone was 100% legs and glutes. Like you really didn't grow at all. And I want everyone listening to this to take this home. She did not grow her upper body at all.
Actually had to bring it down. So my biggest thing from previous shows was not having as good balance and symmetry from my upper body to lower body. I always still needed a little more glutes and hamstrings for as big as my quad development was. I needed to bring down my traps and back to match my posterior chain for my glutes and hamstrings as well, versus trying to bring up glutes and hamstrings to match my upper back. So instead, reducing my upper body size and not growing it, but also focusing on these areas in my lower body that specifically weren't isolated as much as my particular exercises that were hitting my quads and glutes. I needed to work more on my minimus, my medius, as well as more of my hamstrings. All these things, I really needed to kind of bring in a more symmetrical lower body and more abs. I think the biggest thing for me from Bahamas in the previous show, which was Vegas again, I still suffered from not having dominant abs because I didn't have a developed core, honestly. Like I didn't have enough muscle maturity in my ab wall to where I needed to add more density. And that was one of the other bigger focuses that I had to bring in over the last couple of years.
So what did you do? What did it look like? What was the strategy to bring up these areas?
So with abs, so many are like, oh my God, I'm gonna get thick waist with weighted abs, and that's gonna thicken my waistline. By no means is that going to happen. I think if you are doing a lot of compound movements that are extremely heavy and you're doing like powerlifting movements, then yes, your erectors are just going to start thickening up pretty naturally. But if you're just doing weighted core, so like I've started doing a lot of weighted V-ups, a lot of hanging crunches. Oh my God, so many rotational type of exercises, whether if that was Russian twists. I mean, there's just so many things that you just need to load time under tension, the actual ab muscle, the same way, same principles that you do for resistance training with quads and back, you're going to apply to abs. So a lot of tempo, a lot of tension, higher reps, hitting it more frequently throughout the weeks, not just doing it once a week. So doing the frequency helped a lot. And then with my glutes and legs, it was also frequency. So trying to increase, not to just 3 times a week, but also how often I split up my my muscle group. So a lot of the times we focus on just glute for those 3 times of the week, when in reality, I needed to actually focus on the glute and hamstring portion in strength. And then start isolating for so I actually only have like 1 isolation day for glute throughout the week for a long period of time. I think women get so obsessed over, getting this activation and, doing so much band work, when in reality, we just have to get these compound lifts to get stronger. and then we'll be able to, do some more isolated exercises for fun. But so yeah, that was the main principles. Honestly, a little bit more frequency, more load, more time under tension for all those muscle groups that we just talked about. And I think with my diet, I think this is the funnest part, because I was more in a maintenance phase. I never really allowed myself to go into this, oh, I'm super flexible and I can eat whatever I wanted, because I always knew I was trying to still maintain for shoots, and I was still trying to look somewhat relatively good for the shows. So it was more about actually letting myself be at a good constant amount of carbs, versus normally I like bumping up my fats at some point of the year to try to add on a little bit more size. And this time I only played with more carbs, guys. It was pretty awesome to kind of see how my insulin resistance this year really got really improved versus before. I would get really inflamed over having a lot of carbs, versus now it's like, I can give me all the carbs. I've been actually working really well with them. I think that your body can respond a lot more when you play around with your maintenance levels versus just trying to push in the surplus and adding calories in when you don't really need them. I know we always have a goal of building, but biggest takeaway, guys, I was able to build during the majority of the year of me being in maintenance. So that was my big
100%. I definitely don't feel like you need to be in an excessive surplus to be able to achieve physical progression. That's for sure. I think that's where people come into that, really nasty zone of gaining unnecessary ratios of body fat to lean mass. And it only becomes far harder to get that off coming into a stage. So if you are capable of being in a recomposition structure and focusing between, maintenance just below, just above for periods, then I think you're going to get much better results and just be much more comfortable in your off-season shape too. There's nothing worse. We've both done those uncomfortable development zones where you're just growing in a point and a rate where you're like, far out. Actually, it's kind of how I feel right fucking now. It's not about gaining for a crown, which is very annoying. It's probably been the most frustrating worlds for me. I was so happy for you. That was the best moment for me, was watching you achieve a vision and a dream that we both stated we wanted. And I was unable to be with you, but it was beautiful.
You were so missed, Sally. Like, I can't even express like the competitor. Okay, guys, just to get this off my chest, because this has been on my chest the whole freaking time. This world was not the same. Like, I know this world's was considered a world, but to me it wasn't a world, because there wasn't every country there. Australia, you guys weren't there. Brazil, UK, and although we had a couple competitors that did like all the crazy travels to be able to go through Mexico to come into the US to still compete, like still we didn't have all the countries that normally compete. And I always want the best. Like, I want to be able to go up against the highest caliber athletes all over the world. This is what I started this for. I wanted to go up against the best. And I really felt like my heart was crushed when I found out all the countries that were leading up to restrictions didn't get their, obviously travel ban lifted. And it was one of those things that I think right up to the show, I was getting so sad that I didn't feel like it was an act. Like, I felt like I was doing a regional show. And I hate to say that. I hate to say it, but it was more of I didn't feel like it was the world. I will say the stage and the events and everything that led up to it, they did phenomenal. They did exactly what, world's expected to showcase. And that's what made up for everything. And the stage itself and the backstage, and you still get to make all these relationships. And oh my God, the best part for me, honestly, was the fact that I got to hang out with so many of my own clients. I mean, we had 25 competitors in the show, Allie. Like, this was by far the most I've ever taken on for Worlds, because normally we're focusing on just, buckling down for ourselves and focusing on the prep for me. And this time it was a very big, different experience. So because of that, I was able to kind of like step away from that competitiveness, because I was having so much fun. I really was. I was helping my clients. I was, making sure things were in places, things go sideways last minute, bikinis being broken, that happened too. And like a couple things that, you're running around, so you don't really think about it. But it was one of those things when it finally it was stinging. I'm like, Hattie's not here. Rachel's not here. Allie's not here. I go, oh my God, like all these competitors that make these shows so amazing. I felt, my heart kind of crushed. But, I feel like this era right now, I know I'm really, really sad about you guys' shows being canceled because I was really excited.
Yeah.
My biggest heart goes out to you guys even more now because you guys not only couldn't attend our show in the US, now you guys aren't going to be able to do your own show, which is still just mind blowing to me because it's one of those things where we were expecting to see the biggest, best competitors come out of Australia to then come out to Worlds next year, right? And meet for an actual Worlds.
Well, I think that's definitely what's going to happen. I mean, and I said this to you off air, some of the physiques that we had and some of the people coming through for October, mad lineup across female and male. So it's like, you know what I mean? It's looking at it and going, I'm excited for when the world reopens and we do have that proper level of competitiveness happening. I think it's going to be super exciting. I think it's going to make, I think anyone that attended Worlds this year that attends the next one when everyone's there will just be like, holy shit, this is a whole other level. Like that's what it will be like. And, even for us watching it felt like that. Like I was watching it going, oh man, everyone's missing like all the biggest, best names, all of the longest standing, highest level physiques
that you normally would always see at a Worlds.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So you were just for everyone in the audience, I was like, oh man, it was a great show. And there were some great bodies there, 100%, not denying that. But for anyone that then watches it when it's like it usually is, you're just gonna be like, holy snap. This is it's going from
not even half of the amount of people that normally would even be in the show. Let's just put it from that perspective. So that alone lets us know, okay, things need to definitely ramp back up, Worlds, and get open back up so we can all get back on stage together, so all of us from all over the countries.
And I think to anyone, that has been in the top 10 lineup of this year's Worlds, that is your motivator, is knowing that for you to even be able to stand in a top 10 again, when a world reopens, you'll work hard, fight for that place, fight to turn it up, fight to battle it with the ones that normally stand there, because it will be a battle and it's going to make it so much more fun. If it is a challenge and it is a competition, that's what you're there for.
That's what
you're there to work hard and then be like, yeah, I've got to turn up and put my best on this stage, and then not just stand on it, but work it. Because if I don't, I'm no longer going to be in that place. And I think that to me, and this is actually what we were talking about, Steph, and we'll jump into this because I think mindset is a huge thing in this sport, right? It's a massive thing. And what we often see is people fail because they lack the fortitude of going, it's not expected for me to have this place, so I've got to earn it. And if you lack that, and if you walk into it thinking it's going to be easy, or walk into it thinking you're entitled, or walk into it and think, I've done the work behind the scenes, you got to remember everyone else has too. And genetically, there might be someone a little better than you who's also worked and also has talent. I mean, you can never expect anything. But my point to this is that the day that you think you're going to turn up and there is no longer any kind of competition, I think you're redundant. Because that's not what a champion sort of thinks like. A champion is literally like, I'm going to win it, but I know I've got to work for it. It's just different.
And you know what? I think that also with what you just hit is satisfaction. I think a lot of people get satisfied and complacent with what they've done and kind of where they've gotten. And that makes them super cocky and, obviously makes them believe that they will win, or maybe even the pressure of thinking that they have to win, even kind of destroys their whole journey. And I think I've watched so many competitors honestly fail because of either others putting too much pressure on themselves putting too much pressure on them, unrealistic expectations. I need to win my first pro show. I need to win my first Worlds, and all these things that set yourself up literally for a failure situation. Not saying that you can't do it, but what if you don't? All right. Like, you're going to then feel like you are so lost out of control. You're going to feel depressed and you're going to feel like a complete failure, versus you can set up realistic expectations Let me aim for top 10 in the world in my first world. And my first pro show, aim for my first top 10 or top 5. Heck, if you really think of it as a, competitiveness. If you're thinking of, your first show in general, like just stepping on stage, hell, man, if you can just get to the stage alone, you're going to already do okay. But if you're, it's your second time on stage, maybe not just stepping on stage, but maybe now breaking through the walk and the things that you messed up on the previous time. So self-improvement, self-development.
I think too, the biggest lesson that most people should have learned from COVID, and if you haven't yet, then I think it's probably a sign you still have some mindset work to do, is that the stage is literally an accountability stick. It's basically something that just keeps you really honest to the process because you know it's there, right? But it is not the reason you're doing it. It shouldn't be. Like, it really shouldn't. It should be to be the best you. It should be to be the healthiest version of yourself. It should be to be the fact that you're challenging yourself to achieve a physical goal that you've not yet achieved in life. So you're looking to get better from last year to the next. It should be about the role model you become for your children or for your family or for your peers. There should be a million fucking whys behind your stage journey that is not reliant only on that stage. So that if stage gets cancelled, if stage moves sideways, if the date gets changed, if it gets postponed, delayed, what if napalm blows it up the day before? I mean, whatever happens, it should be that you should sit in that moment, and as much as disappointment or frustration, which you're allowed to feel, is felt, it should be momentary. And then you should literally be like, reset, recoup, regather my focus for something next, or at least celebrate how far you've come and what you've achieved right now. Because I think that, the biggest thing that we see as coaches is where someone's own detriment, of looking at a stage and going, well, now that that's not there, I've got nothing. And then they go and throw themselves in the pantry. Biggest fucking mistake you can make. Well, you have got everything, because every reason you're walking towards that stage is still there. Every single progression and celebration of wins you made should still be being done. It's just because you don't get half naked on a stage and shake it from $5 medal shouldn't be the thing that defines your happiness or your success up to that point, right? Like, I really don't think so.
It's more than just your physique. And I think we get so tied to the abs, the glutes, the legs, and the condition side of the look, right? The way our physique looks, that we also forget all these things like you just mentioned, right? Like the journey and the things that are otherwise. Like, what is it that even made you start in the first place? And hopefully it wasn't just for a pair of abs. Like, I know if that is, that is one of your journey goals, that's okay. But hopefully that's not your only why, because there needs to be some other deeper ones for you to be able to understand that this is way beyond the stage, and the stage is just a stepping stone. I love how you said it was just, obviously got
it's a conduit. I believe it's just a vehicle, remember that the driver is still the one that makes the vehicle go anywhere, and that's you still have the same amount of power over yourself, your direction, and your outcomes, regardless of a stage. And what I see so often is people go, throw it in the fuck it bin, and it's all over now because the stage is gone. Well, no, it doesn't have to be.
No.
There can be another goal. There can be a change of, focus. You can do photo shoots. You can do so many other things that still enable you to go, I've accomplished this, and I'm proud of this, and I'm proud of this moment, and I'm proud of this point of physique at this point in time. I'm proud of everything I've gone through, overcome, obliterated in my way to get to this point. And I think that just because a stage goes, it's not going to be gone forever. Like, my love of God, a stage is always going to be there. It's whether or not it's a definite confirmed stable stage, probably not with COVID, but it's
not in Australia at the moment.
Exactly. Oh my God, right? Like, Jesus. But I think that because of the landscape at the moment globally, and this unprecedented pandemic time, it's better to almost be anticipating no stage, regardless. And that way, then, if you're prepping, knowing, hey, at any point in time, this could move, and if it does, I'm going to be fine with that. If you can get to the point where I coach like that now. So my coaching process has changed, thanks COVID. And it is now one where I'm a 360-degree view of everything's nailed, everything's ready. We are so going to be peaking on time. If it does not, here's our backup plan. This is our contingency. This is strategy number one, strategy number two. And it's like that. All of my team now know that we may or may not make it. And it doesn't matter. If that doesn't happen, it'll look like this. Our backup plan is. And you've got to be like that. And if you're listening to this and your coach doesn't talk about anything like that with you, that's fine. You create your own. Work on your own mental space that, okay, if that moves, that changes, this doesn't play out, I'm going to do this, and have a resolve internally about your direction so that you don't get to a point and there's a crossroad put up and you're like, I'm directionless now, because it doesn't have to be that way. And I think that there's two ways that we should probably talk about this, because I think that it goes without saying it's primarily for the people that have shows canceled. But I think it's also the same for people that get to a show and don't get the outcome they want. It's the same thing. They're like, oh, well, Jesus, I had everything on winning. Really? This is your very first show, love. Why would you automatically assume you're going to win? Like, we would love to aim for that. But this is a really tough brand with some amazing physiques and people turning up every time they've turned up maybe 3 or 4 times before this.
You know, it bothers me more because they see others do it, that they expect themselves to be able to do the same thing that others.
I would question this. So did that other person get onto a regional stage with only 3 or 4 people on stage? Oh, that's probably why.
That's definitely
you need to look at the variables here, people.
Or like when they even, and I hate to always resort back to this one, but it's always one that I'm like, I want to win my first worlds, and then they refer to like Rachel. I'm like, Rachel, and like I want to win the world championship. Like
you have like, people say
Rachel's a unicorn, you guys. Like, come on, like this woman is. How many people have you met like her? I mean, still to this day, I don't understand where they come from this. Like,
I'm actually
have to win their first world. Like,
I'm actually laughing.
I mean, it bothers me because a lot of
you. I'd slap them.
What are you talking about? Allie, I'm like, really? Because you're not a Rachel, number one. But number two, it's like, look, I think people forget that some people do have a talent, you know, some people do have a gift, you know, genetically, and maybe they're gifted in other areas, like with performance, and, you know, and maybe some people are going to do better on their first show than what you will do. Let me tell you, I was not that person. I went out there, I did not know what I was doing. I went out there, I waved at Carrie. I didn't do a routine. I didn't even know I was supposed to pose. So it's not about, you know, obviously nailing your first show. It's really about just knowing how to belong with the brand, what you need to improve on, what they're looking for. I think a lot of the times we forget.
Exactly. First Worlds is literally your opportunity to be seen, and secondly, your opportunity to understand where in the pecking order you currently sit.
Correct.
Then the gap is identified for where you need to be. Then you create the strategy throughout the year to bridge the gap. And guess what? The people above you would have done the same thing and already been ahead of you again. So the best you hope for then is an improvement on a higher ranking. You still don't expect to win. For most people, I'll throw this out there, you're probably going to be working for several years. End of story, as a pro.
And we could even put, let's put Michelle McDonald as actually one of the examples. I know a lot of.
Oh my God, she's been doing this for 10 years.
You know, she's been literally doing this as a pro. And I mean, it's as a pro and an amazing pro for that.
For like 10 years.
For 10 years, and this woman never ever gave up or used an excuse that they didn't like her, or that, you know, that she got cheated out of her placings, or that she didn't win because, you know, political shit, like honestly all this other stuff that you'll always hear. It's so not true. It's because she just like you said, Allie, she saw the gap. She knew that what she needed to do was bridge that gap, and she kept year after year after year improving and getting better, improving her placings. She didn't just come from one show, you know, and then just win. She actually went from one show to then placing first in top 10, then from top 10 getting in the top 5, then from the top 5 got in the top 3, and after the top 3 being next to Allie at Worlds in Bahamas, she finally after the next in her next pro show gets the ability to, you know, win a crown. She did bump up every year. But it's a process. And for some people, those realistic goals are so important because you have to assess your muscle maturity, what the brand, again, is looking for. And keep remembering how I keep saying what the brand is looking for, because every brand looks for something different. And with WBFF, it's a beauty and fitness brand. So there's a lot of stuff that we have to remember that come into play. It's not just your physique.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But it's not the winning physique if you don't have the marketability, if you don't have the presence, if you don't know how to carry yourself. So it's definitely one of the things that you have to work on. If maybe you had the best physique and you keep improving your physique over the year, and what you needed to work on was your presence, then yes, you may actually have that ability to kind of go from a not top 10 to maybe a top 3, because you might have just been missing that key of presentation. But that's a very big difference. There's not very many cases like that someone just doesn't know how to move their physique and they're just like ready and already have that muscle and look amazing. So most of us have to develop, that strategy to know what improvements to work on, and then be able to come back and just show the judges that we worked on those improvements, and just continue being better.
Yeah. And then I think too, the biggest thing to take home from this too, for everyone listening, is you don't just keep bringing the same shit every year. You don't know.
Amen.
You better come back looking different every single year. Different vibe, different energy, different posing, different suits, different style, different fashion, different looks, different 100%. Hair, different makeup. Do not bring same shit, because you just won't continue to work up the ladder. If Allison thinks that she sees the same thing every time and you're just vanilla, she'll classify you as boring. You will not, it doesn't matter how good you look. You will not get looked at. She'll overlook you. Yeah. So you better mix it up. You know what? I saw a girl in Australia go pro wearing beige shoes, plain beige shoes, like plain AF beige shoes. And all I can say is, don't ever make that mistake, people. Like, don't. When you are at Worlds, from the toes up, Allison will judge you. You best be bringing your A game from head to toe.
Inside scoop, everybody. Allison's so big on the shoes, and even more so, she's always been big on shoes, but right now she's so mega on them.
So
every girl up there at this last Worlds had such blinged out shoes. I think the shoes are like a fashion shoe show right now. Like,
it is almost
the whole show. I couldn't stop staring at heels. They were probably better than the bikinis in my opinion.
Been, and you've been with me on a judging panel with Allison. We're at a judging panel with Allison, and we have had 3 girls in a top lineup, very close physically, beauty-wise, moving pretty clearly. She broke the 3 in points based on shoes. So I will tell you now, when I watch this show here, I'm like, oh my God.
How dare you?
What is that? You know, like I honestly had a moment where I was like, if Allison was here, she'd have kittens. Like, you just can't, you just cannot. Every detail has to be meticulously planned, and it has to be fashion forward 100%. It's not just about blending. It's about going above and beyond and standing out and being a diva. You need to be a diva.
Yes. And the shoes will always bring up that extra.
100%. 100%. Because you don't really wear an excessive amount of jewelry. You really don't.
No, actually with the competitions of WBFF, it's really not about the jewelry as much as the bikini speaking for itself and the heel speaking for itself. And because we're on that WBFF topic and like kind of what Allison likes and not, just a tip for everybody listening, please don't bend over on stage. I think these are that we're just kind of talking about the competitions and the do's and don'ts. That's one of the things that is just an absolute no.
I just actually, on this note, we talked about this offline, and I just want you to confirm this with me. Don't look, anyone that's going to look at Worlds just past as a direction setter for where they're going with their shows moving forward. Please be careful with some of the posing you would have seen, because there was a lot of posing on World stage this year that is not really great. or what we would have normally.
COVID got a lot of people confused, okay?
It really would have. I've had a lot of people message me about it and asking me questions about things, and I'm like, just no, none of that. Don't do that. And I know you saw it, and I know it may have even made top 10s, but please no, we're not doing it. So, I'm going to stress again, make sure that you are seeking guidance on your posing, because
Oh,
Steph, right,
absolutely.
there were a lot of people that were doing really excessively low bends, you know, on the side pose and
Too
the
much
back pose.
bending.
There was
Yeah.
way too much of this army stuffy stuff. Don't do that. Like, yeah, I mean, so just please work with someone on posing and be really meticulous, because you don't want to get all the way to this point and be at this level and this high level echelon finish and then ruin it because you're just not getting those marks and those in the 40% of where you can be picking them up. You're not picking them up. And I'd hate to see that, because again, as I said, when the world returns to normal and it looks like it normally does, that's not going to get you where you want to be. So just
I think
be
this world,
cautious.
yes, I think this world is going to really amp up a lot of international competitors to want to come back and show.
It's very exciting.
Oh, I know it. I know it. I'm excited. I'm trust me. I saw it from afar once. Like, I'm literally looking at the show. I was like,
everyone's so itching to get overseas that it's not even funny. Like, everyone's itching.
I'm telling you, I knew it from like even my engagement going through the roof from everybody watching while there was worlds going on, and literally me sitting backstage writing up a post of like how sad I was that Australia can't come here. And literally like the heaviness is still sitting, and I just cannot wait to see all the competitors that are in Australia and UK and Brazil and Asia, everywhere that they cannot compete right now. These are
like,
all,
you know,
our countries that have not competed.
The Korean men were missed in the men's lineup. Like they're ridiculous. They're ridiculous. Like the Koreans,
conditions
some of the UK men, our Aussies that couldn't go. Like, and the male categories were really lacking. Like,
they hurt.
It was really felt for the boys, because I felt like I felt like they would have been disappointed too, being like, you know, shit, this is all we've got capable.
Oh, 100%.
You know what I mean? Like, they would have loved
muscle models have like so many more in this.
I know.
It was sad. So like I'm really, you know, hoping that things get better for you guys, and hopefully you guys can get another show maybe early in the year or something like that for you guys, because it's just too long for you guys not to get on stage.
Oh,
like
100%. Like, I've been trying to plan my comeback show and prep based upon rough guidelines around a pregnancy. And it's very frustrating because I'm like, can you just hurry up and fucking take so that I can actually have this and get over it and then start prepping? Like, it's funny, but that's what it's been like. You know, my entire comeback stage is dependent upon when the embryo decides to do what it's meant to do. Because for our listeners' point of view, you know, we had our very first transfer and we were waiting for the news. We were going to get the news 2 days after Worlds. And sadly, while Steph was actually on stage, I lost. Horrible. I know and it actually was, because I was watching you on stage and I was so fucking happy for you, and I started to get the most intense cramps. And then so anyway, we lost our baby as you won your fourth crown, which I was so happy for.
So bittersweet though. That is horrible.
It really was. And I mean, look, what I was hoping for was to have a situation where I couldn't control my outcome with a stage. I couldn't get my fourth in a row. I had to hand that over begrudgingly. I was hoping I would be handing it over, but then welcoming, you know, the next win. And we sadly didn't get that. So since I spoke to you, we've had the loss, and then we went straight into a 6th cycle to try to basically get another embryo on ice to replace the one we lost, because the stats, it's a numbers game. This whole game is a numbers game. It's so fucked. It's honestly the shittest process to go through, in the sense of you can't control a damn thing. And it's just, from the stats in science, it's like you lose 50% from what you collect, you lose 50% by day 3, you lose another 50 to 30% by day 5. And then by day 5, it's like biopsies, and you may or may not get something that is usable after that. Like, it's really quite gut wrenching, right? So, you know, we were like, okay, we found out after the process that it can take 3 to 4 transfers before one takes. Well, we only had 4 on ice. And I'm like, well, I can't risk us having nothing left. So we took the break straight into another drug cycle. You know, for anyone that's watching my stories, you've seen it. You know, you gain 7 kilos in a week. You just feel like shit. There's so much hormones running through you. I had the worst cycle and the worst surgery post-surgery this time. It took me like, I was in excruciating pain for like 2 days. I had massive overstimulation where my ovaries were like way too just big. Like we got 30 embryos out. It was crazy. But out of all of that, we only had one at day 5 that was biopsyable. So it's devastating numbers. But it is what it is. It's very normal. Like none of this is abnormal. It's very, very normal. So, you know, we had all of that go through, and then now they've scheduled me for a laparoscopy surgery next month. Oh no, this month, next Monday, not this Monday, next. And then it takes a month after that before we can do our next transfer. And I mean, what we're really hoping for is that we have a, you know, normal embryo in 2 weeks' time from this last cycle we did to replace the one we lost. And I'm really freaking hoping that we get a successful transfer in the next one that it takes, because this surgery I'm having, this laparoscopy where they basically go in 4 points into my stomach and do this, it's like full exploratory. Anyone that's had endometriosis or PCOS will know what I'm talking about, because this is a pretty regular thing for them. They'll go in and they'll cut bits out that might be growing into organs. So it's basically like spreading of cells. I've never had any symptoms of that, but they want to do that because you can basically have it and not have a symptom. So they want to rule that out, because this process plus the scrape of my uterus can enhance the likelihood of your embryo actually taking. So we're fingers crossing. So I'm going to go through this big traumatic journey yet again, another trauma, and then we're going to get something come out of it. That's what we're hoping for. So
we're going to be praying for you, and
oh my God,
everyone is going to be, you know,
honestly,
having you in your thoughts and like what you're going through. Like, hey, all power, honestly, to you, because
it's actually been harder than my broken back.
Really, you would say this is harder than your back?
This is harder.
Hear this, people. Like the broken back was hard.
I'd rather break my back again.
I watched her do that. Well, not watch her literally break her back, but come back from that, and that was a journey for her. So this is not only, you know, tough. I think emotionally for her and mentally, but also physically, as you guys are hearing. 7 kilograms, guys. That's 15 pounds over here. Okay, like 15 pounds.
It is, and Steph, like
fluctuating.
You gain it, right, and then you lose a little bit of it, and then you go into the next thing, and you don't drop all of it. So it's just like you're just chasing your tail, and it's really fucking mentally hard for, you know, at my level, you know, what, you know, I normally am looking like.
Oh, absolutely. I know that's what the hardest part
really
has to be.
Fucking hard.
Guys, Allie's a 3-time world champion. She's also freaking always like literally in shape year round.
Yeah, so, like I literally am 4 or 5 weeks from a photo shoot at any point in time. So it's like, it's very challenging. And I'm
also reminding yourself, right? Like I'm sure you have to remind yourself all the time that this isn't physical. This is obviously something that
100%.
And this is with the goal.
100%. And I had a whole bunch. So I had this really frustration day on Thursday, I think it was. I posted about it in my story, and I think it's really relevant for anyone listening to this, because this can be translated to many things in life. And when you have this stage expectation and it didn't turn out the way you wanted to, or you've had a stage cancel and so you're not able to get on it, like whatever it is, this is a very transferable feeling. It was just this feeling of complete and utter fucking frustration at, you know, an uncontrollable event, frustration at, in my case, I don't have control over my body, frustration that I don't have control over these outcomes. It's down to stats. It's down to numbers. It's down to roll of the dice. It's Russian fucking roulette, right?
And if your body doesn't respond,
100%,
and you can't do anything about it.
And I couldn't, I had frustration with my training, and I can't do what I want. And for everyone listening to this, for 2 weeks of every month, I can't fucking train because of the injections, the surgery in my back. So I'm literally going at half pace all year. But then on top of that, even my half pace can't be full pace because of considerations coming into and out of cycles and transfers and injections in my back. Like, it's just, so I'm frustrated as an athlete. I'm really frustrated, more frustrated as an athlete than I am anything else at this point in time, because you can't do anything about it. I'm just stuck where I am, taking each day as it is and praying that the next one's going to be better than the one before. Like, that's literally where I'm at. And it is fucking rough. But I can tell you this, I truly still believe it's going to happen for us. It's just, hurry the fuck up already. That's my vibe. And, you know, look, I'm going to look at this and we'll have a conversation about this in 6 and 12 months time. And it's going to be another blessing, the same way my back was. I'm going to have learnt from it. I'm going to have grown from it. I'm going to be a better athlete when I come out the back end of it. And I know that. So when I had that moment, it lasted for about an hour or so. And then I reframed it. And this is an important conversation, because for everyone that's going through that vibe, that mojo, that mood, this is important. I had to catch myself and I had to be like, no, you know what? This is not the end game. My end game is this bundle of joy and this the purpose we've got behind this, right? And this is part of the grind. This is like deep in prep, Cal's fucking low, having to assault bike, wanting to cry, grind. It's just a different form. And it might not be an aesthetically great one, and that's fine. It's purposeful. So it's just leaning into it rather than fighting it. And it's finding the bigger picture again, you know? And I think that if you are at a point where you've just got off a stage, you're not happy about the outcome, or there is a stage that's been canceled on you, you need to listen to what I'm saying to reframe that, you know? Like, I think you need to not get stuck in a pattern of toxic mindset or thought processes, because it's temporary.
It's not only just temporary, it's also very subjective to where we feel 100%. Throughout the year. So I 100%. Think that we also forget that feelings come and go for us, and the 100%. Way we feel right then and there, it could have been because of the show, it could have been because of, you know, you just finding out the news and not really thinking of the bundle of joy, like you just said, that was the reason why you would have been like okay with it at the end of the day. By the end of the day, you probably were okay with it, not like that, but
I was,
you know, because like she said, I mean, it's something that you have to understand, not just your why, but also, you know, kind of not having that toxic mindset of thinking that there's only one way. And that it's not temporary, because everything is temporary, guys. I think that's one thing that we have to remind ourselves during the pandemic quite often, is that this is all, and I'm hoping and praying and crossing my fingers, it's all temporary, although this temporary has been the longest temporary that I've ever seen any can go into, but feelings come and go.
They do.
Obviously, you know, grounding ourselves with deeper whys, as well as, you know, really realistic goals is really important. And then things for us to just continue striving longevity versus just like what's right in front of us. When we have a task that's just, let's say, time frame of 12 weeks, or like in your cycles are 6 weeks or something like that, right, Allie? Or something.
They're so fucking long, babe. They're like, it's like everything's on and done in a month, but it's, as I said, by the month's over, you only get like a 1 week, 2 week where you start to feel okay, and then it starts again. So it's like constant, right?
So you're not stopping.
No.
So
and then you're grieving. Like you have these periods which, like, you have the high and then you have the result, and then you're like, fuck. So then you go through grieving. So it's emotional to physical, back to emotional. I think this is
actually a good one for the listeners to, you know, kind of just listen from you, is how have you been able to, you know, deal with a little bit of the grieving side with having your already kind of connect, so that people can actually
I think it's relevant what you talk about with being realistic, right? So I just had to get really fucking real about the numbers and the science and the data and the stats, and be like, okay, I again, though, don't define myself by that and go, well, that's going to dictate my outcomes, because I don't. But I'm aware of them. And when you're aware of them, it allows you to kind of go, well, there's nothing wrong with me, and this is fucking normal, and it sucks ball sacks, but I'm okay. And it's just about continuing doing what I'm doing. So I'm doing all the fucking right things, literally textbook. And I believe that, like you do when you get to stage and you know you've given it your all, you've done your all, and if you lose on stage next to someone, you cannot be angry about it. But when you win, you also know you win with conviction. either of those outcomes can be said the same thing for when you follow the process.
That's
So I'm
exactly what I was
just
going to say.
embedding myself in this fertility fucking roller coaster like it's a comp prep, and I am riding the journey and the waves and the emotions and the highs and the lows like I would a world championship chasing prep. I am applying the same process to this because it's the only way I know how to be. It's the best way I know how to get through something that might be physically taxing, emotionally taxing, mentally challenging, is to apply structure, to apply a process, to have faith in the process, to believe in myself, to believe in the outcome, to believe in my why, and to continue to have a why that I look to. Because when everything goes sideways, which is going to, whether it's prep, whether it's life, whether it's IVF and fertility,
can't control it. Yeah,
you cannot control these variables. You can't let it define you though. And I guess, when I had that frustration, it was because I was having frustration about where I'm at physically as an athlete. And that was just combined with everything else, right? And I had to have that moment of, well, you know what? Fuck, I'm fine. I will bounce back. I'm gonna do even better when
You're
I
an
get to the next
athlete.
race. You know what I mean? Like my mindset hasn't changed. So, but it is the thing that does make it harder is the grieving. It's that factor, which you have losses and it's shitty.
That's the hardest part, I'm pretty sure, for all the heartbreak you guys have had to endure. But what I want everyone to hear over and over again is the fact that she trusted the process. You know, even though right now she's in like an area of unknown, she's still allowing her mind to trust the process, to go through the process. And even though you may be on your fitness journey and don't know if this is working for you, if your body's not responding, if you are frustrated, if you just don't think this is going to work, if you haven't got to where you want to be just yet, do not stop and do not lose faith. Just keep trusting the process. Apply a process, make sure you're going through a good process, good habits, and it's going to all work out in the end. It really, really will. I truly believe that. I think in all aspects of our life, if we really just apply ourselves. So Ali, that was, thank you for opening up and letting us in.
My pleasure. I'll keep sharing. So if anyone's following my journey, I'm apparently educating a lot of people. I'm getting a lot of messages where they're like, holy fuck, I had no idea. Or it'll be like, I'm learning so much and I'm loving it. So, for everyone that is giving me positive support and just beautiful messages and, this on the harder days when I get them, I love them. So thank you.
Oh, well, we're all here to support your journey. We're following and we're praying and we're hoping this next transfer obviously is.
You and me both. But in between that, you're going to be able to see my big, swollen, scarred belly because the laparoscopy, you get like, oh man, this journey, I tell you what, this kid had better give me all of the love on the planet because what I've gone through physically to get you, are you listening to me? Before you even arrive, I better be world's best mom on every coffee cup for the rest of my life because Jesus Christ, you are more wanted than I don't even know. You're more wanted than wine. Like I know, like you are so much more wanted. You're more loved than my chocolate dogs. Like honestly, but seriously, I think all you can do, guys, listening to this is 100%. Don't give up on yourself. Don't give up on your why. Don't give up on your dreams, even if you take a few steps back, because I believe they're still waiting for you. It's just they're realized by the people that continue on the journey. They're not realized by the ones that give up. Don't be the one person that gives up. And I refuse to give up on mine.
Please don't, because let me tell you, like I would have still not be a champion the way I am today if I would have stopped, and I would have literally just gave in and thought that this wasn't for me. I didn't think this was going to be anything out of this. And I just kept going and I kept trusting my process and my dreams and kept going after them and kept chasing them. So I hope that we are able to, inspire any of you to chase your own dreams as well as, go through some incredible journeys like Ali and
for everyone that is following me and, giving me support, thank you again, because it means the world to me. And, look, I hope that you all learn a little bit more as I share my journey in the coming weeks and we'll be tuned for a transfer middle of October, I think. So let's fingers crossed. We'll have a few more podcasts between now and then. But until that, it's been so good to see you, Steph. I love you. I'm so proud of you. I am so grateful that you're our 4-time world champ, because I can't picture a better role model for the young ones coming through.
I freaking love you. Thank you. So thank you, honestly. But and everyone else, thank you all for listening, and we will see you on the next podcast.
Yes, and for everyone, please don't forget to comment, to rate us, to share us with all your friends and family. Give us a review online. We really appreciate each and every one of you, and we hope that you enjoy this episode. Stay tuned for next week's, and we will look forward to seeing you all soon.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Queen Divas, Queens of Fitness podcast. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at Queen Divas Pod, on Twitter at Queen Divas 4, and follow our hosts on Instagram, Alicia at Alicia Gowans _WBFF Pro, and Steph at Stephanie Ayala 7. See you all next week.